First and foremost, we had to meet as the two departments, Department of Sport and Recreation, as well as the Department of Communications. The two ministers and the teams were to sit, get to understand what is happening, and then we met with SABC, and then later on we met SABC and PSL.
So the Premier Soccer League came through after you had your discussion with the Communications Minister Nomvula Mokonyane, as well as yourself as Sport and SABC. The nature of that discussion and the potential outcome before the Premier Soccer League stepped in. Just give me a sense and give us, as the listeners as well, a sense of what that was about.
First and foremost, the meeting between the two departments was to understand to what extent we are in the same understanding of what has transpired. Because as you would understand, SABC is under the Department of Communication, and PSL happens to fall under the Department of Sport and Recreation. Just an understanding between us, because as you know, as government, because we are representing government, we are the major shareholder when it comes to SABC. So we had, after understanding as departments, get to understand what are the issues with SABC. So that was very important, because all of us represent government, and so that we understand even the nature of the partnership, and then what the issues from their side are. So for us it was then important to say, after they've made us to understand, if they come before PSL, what is the understanding in both of them? And what was the misunderstanding at the same time?
Was there a misunderstanding? Are you able to, lead us into your confidence? I mean, SABC is a public broadcaster, and people say it is of their interest to know if there was a misunderstanding. Is there a shortage of money from the SABC? Or did someone drop the ball? And, excuse the pun, because, sure, massive ball was dropped because the radio was not buzzing this weekend. Radio was dead in a way that nobody found it to be forgiving. Did somebody drop the ball? Was there a misunderstanding? And if there was, what is the nature of it?
Well, just as you are saying, it's something that the people of South Africa could just not afford not to listen to their radios for such an important match or matches that took place. We want upfront also as government to apologize to the people of South Africa. It should not have happened. That is why we had to prioritize to have this series of meetings that took us the whole day. Because one, in the understanding of what is happening, indeed somebody dropped the ball, and at the same time then now you have a situation where the actual people who have to then get to be punished are the people. So we looked into it and the gaps. The issue, for instance, also coming from PSL, was not about money, but it was in terms of their understanding and agreement or previous contract that would talk to the rights and promotions that are happening and all of that. So it was a misunderstanding that is there, and as you would understand, SABC is also undergoing its own restructuring, sure, and putting together governance issues, so somewhere you could see there was some leakage in terms of what should have happened.
I mean, just to get straight into it, you've already admitted that somebody dropped the ball, and if that person dropped the ball, to use football terms, was it dropped at home? Was it a home drop? Was it an away drop? Was it dropped in the PSL as being the away team, or dropped at home, which is the SABC?
Well, we picked gaps in where SABC dropped it.
But they were able to admit to it.
They were able to admit to it. That is why in the deliberations we really have come to a point where everybody agrees to a process of taking forward what has been amiss, and at the same time making sure that tomorrow all systems go.
Yes.
So.
Okay, before we get to the old systems, though, because you mentioned something about the restructuring. So it would also be important to maybe put forward, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong here, that those who have dropped the ball might not necessarily be people that are still in the building right now. There might be people that are no longer part of the SABC, and they left to clean up the mess. So I don't know if I'm right or wrong with that assumption. It was somewhere along the line. I was picking up that there were even verbal agreements that were made, as opposed to what you and I would know, where you sit down and you sign a contract or you sign an agreement, that verbal agreements actually don't work.
Well, I would not be sure of everybody within the system, but it's what, for instance, even in the meeting that SABC is looking into, to make sure that all of their issues that pertain to even your agreements and whatever contracts that are there are in order, or they are regularized. So that in itself indicates to say, even if somebody happens to have left SABC, if that matter was done and there would be anything that then has to follow that person, it will be done. So they are putting every effort to ensure they resolve such matters. And at the same time, that one, we were also saying, in the public interest, let not be the public that suffers. So let us have the systems to go and task you within a period to have settled the matter.
Okay, I was watching, obviously, One Eye on Channel 404, and I saw what looked like a happy ending. There was a reaching across the table from the communications minister. Across the table, the chair of the board of the SABC was there. The chair of the Premier Soccer League, Ivan Koza, was there as well. So was yourself. But there seemed to be an exchange then that looked to have smiles on their faces. Can you tell the South African public right now that are listening to Radio 2000 what the actual final outcome is? There are games tomorrow, there's a game on Wednesday, there's a game on Thursday, heading into an MTN 8 weekend as well. What's the status in terms of radio?
It's good news for South Africans, because the meeting today came to a conclusion that we are back to the system where radios will be able to broadcast. So South Africans will be listening to all their league matches from tomorrow. And the issues that were also a bone of contention around promos, also it's all systems go.
Wow.
So from tomorrow onwards, so that is good news for South Africans.
So from tomorrow onwards, good news, people can tune in again.
Indeed.
Do you have any knowledge, though, Minister, I might be stretching you here a little bit, to know that this good news will last until when? 2022, 2025? Or are we still likely to have people seated around a table trying to renegotiate something more structured, that we don't have something like this happen again?
Well, from my understanding into some of the issues in terms of detail, is a situation that every aspect of what is entailed in the regularization of the agreement or contract has to be done within a month. And then South Africans can be assured of what pertains in terms of the future.
Okay.
So we've given just a month that must be finalized.
And you will follow it up, I'm sure.
Definitely we have to, because we also believe that maybe even from ourselves as government, we have not done enough to monitor what is happening. So now we have to. And this one, we are assuring South Africans that a period of a month will be enough to have trashed the matters.
So there you go. That was our top story. Tokozile